Yes, sir. And what's up, Hawks? It's your boy Hawk, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Podcast. Episode 31. Back-to-back episodes from episode 30. Let's go. Today. Yes, sir. Sure. Yeah. Yes, sir. Happy Thursday. Happy Christmas. Winter break 2023. Let's go. Man, that song is crazy. Hey, what's up, Fox? It's your boy Hawk. Welcome back to another episode of Fox Podcast. It is episode 31 of the series. I'm recording this on Wednesday, December 20th, 2023. It is 12:48 p.m. And I'm recording this back to back from the last podcast episode, which is episode 30. And so, once again, it is a sunny day because it is the exact same day I'm recording episode 30. But these are dropping back to back, so I'll just mention that part. But anyways, welcome back to another episode of Fox Podcast. I'm glad to be here. I hope you guys are having a great day, great night whenever you're watching this. And so I'm gonna just get straight into the topic of this podcast episode because episode 30 kind of explained what was going on already today. So, I mean, this podcast episode is going to be from a new YouTube channel I'm reacting to. So, back-to-back reaction videos, but this is going to be from Polysonic or Polyphonic, I believe that's how you say the name of the channel. This is going to be my first reaction to their videos on this podcast episode or this podcast series. What is the oldest song you know? And so I thought, why not do something different for this podcast episode and react to something music related? I'm kind of, I guess you would say, experienced in the field of music a little bit. I know a little music. I guess I played a little instrument, a little bit. But I mean, no, but I definitely wanted to do something different. I thought, why not something music related? Because I do play music at the beginning of the podcast, and then also there's music playing in the background. Right now while I'm talking, there's music playing. I don't know what instruments I'm gonna be using in the back of this, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be from Sega. So shout out to Sega, man. The instrumentals that Sega make, crazy, and I'm glad that it's on YouTube at least. It's copyright free, so shout out to them. But regardless, this podcast episode is courtesy of Polysonic or Polyphonic. So let me get straight into it. Let's go. Okay, what is the oldest song you know from Polyphonic? 1 million subscribers, 1.05 million subscribers. This video came out a year ago on February 2022. Man, 2022 is almost 2 years old, by the way, just letting y'all know time's going by. But anyways, this video is about 10 minutes long, almost 11 minutes long. And what is the oldest song you know? Alright, let's get straight into it. I've seen videos from Polyphonic before. This is my first time watching a video from them in a while. If it's them or if it's one person who is, behind the channel. But regardless, it's my first time, or not my first time, but it's not my first time watching one of their videos. But this is my first time reacting to a video from Polyphonic on the channel, or on the podcast series, Hawks Podcast. So let me get straight into it. Let's go. What's the oldest song you know? All right, let's go.
This video is brought to you by CuriosityStream. If you sign up to CuriosityStream with the link...
Little history lesson.
For as long as humans have existed, we've made music. Archaeologists have uncovered bone flutes that they believe to be somewhere between 35,000 and 40,000 years old. And even before that, proto-humans were likely making music with their voice. Fast forward a few thousand decades, and basically every culture that's ever existed has had some sort of a musical tradition. But unlike other artistic mediums, we don't actually really know what most of these looked like. Recording technology is little more than a century old, and our understanding of a lot of historic notation systems are based on educated guesses. That's not even to mention the countless musical traditions that didn't use notation. The upshot of all of this is that a significant amount of all the music ever made has been completely lost to time. I've been thinking on this reality a lot lately, and it's led me to a question that really hasn't left my head. What is the oldest song that is still regularly heard today in a form that might be recognizable to someone listening to it when it was made? Or, in simpler terms, what is the oldest song that you know?
Right.
Now, the answer to this question obviously depends on who you are. If,
Right.
like me, you've had the question of oldest music before, there's a good chance you've come across something talking about the Hurrian hymns. These Bronze Age hymns were carved in clay tablets that have been dated as far back as 1400 BCE. They were written in an ancient form of writing called cuneiform, and meant to be played on an early form of a lyre. What you're hearing right now is a modern interpretation of one of these hymns as performed by Braden Olson on YouTube.
Wow, super interesting. Exquisite.
As incredible as this piece is, it's not exactly one that's made its way into a lot of modern listening. And on top of that, there's no real way of knowing how accurate the modern interpretations of the song are. Of course, that's a problem that kind of plagues this entire endeavor. While we can have educated guesses at ancient pieces like this, we're often missing aspects like tempo, dynamics, and sometimes even key. And then, of course, there's the problem of straight up missing parts of the song, as is the case for the Delphic hymns, a set of Greek compositions dated back to 138 and 128 BC. As you're probably noticing, hymns make up a lot of the earliest music that we're aware of. Religion and music have always been intrinsically tied.
100%.
The Hindu Vedas, which are some of the oldest pieces of literature in existence, formed the basis for Indian classical music. And the 5 classics of Confucianism laid the basis for Chinese classical music. So if you're familiar with some of these musical traditions, you've likely heard and picked up on musical ideas that are centuries old. And if you're Jewish, you might recognize Zur Mishalo, a hymn written sometime between the years of 1000 and 1500 CE. But as you'll notice, that's a pretty broad range of dates. A lot of these religious hymns have gone through a number of modifications and variations, so it's difficult to pin down exactly where they came from. To find some songs that we can draw a more direct lineage from, we need to look at the Middle Ages. If you watch movies at all, there's a very good chance that you might recognize a phrase from a 13th century song called Dies Irae. Dies Irae, or Day of Wrath, is a Gregorian chant about the apocalypse. That opening run of notes has become one of the most cited pieces of music in all of pop culture. It's particularly common in film scores. References to this chant have appeared in movies like It's a Wonderful Life, Home Alone, Lion King, even The Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. I was just thinking about that movie in a dream this past day. Whatever.
But it's unclear who wrote this and when. There's some that will say it's been around as early as the 600s, but more likely it was written sometime in the mid-13th century by one of Thomas of Celano or Latino Malabrasco Orsini. If you want the oldest piece of music you know, this might just be it. Except, chances are you probably don't really know the whole song. You probably just know the opening notes. To find a song that you might know more than a handful of notes from, we need to look away from religious songs and towards secular folk music. There was an early English folk song from around the same time as Dies Irae called Sumer is a Cumenin. As per usual, we don't really know when it was first written, but we do have a manuscript showing the song's lyrics and melody that was compiled sometime in the early 1260s. Rather than being a hymn to a god, this song is singing about the simple realities of medieval life, the changing of the seasons. Like the Dies Irae, this piece survives today partially through popular culture. In 1938, The Adventures of Robin Hood used the song, and then in 1973, a version of it was used as the climax for the horror movie The Wicker Man. So for some of you, this may be the oldest song you recognize. But honestly, I don't think that there's that many people prancing around singing Sumer is a Cumenin these days. For the song that I think has most clearly permeated modern Western culture, we still need to jump ahead a few centuries. As is so often the case, musical history is intrinsically tied to technology. And in the case of our quest today, the piece of technology that most helped the preservation of music was the printing press. In the 1500s, printing presses completely changed the way that music, and especially folk music, was distributed. Prior to the printing press, folk songs spread through wandering minstrels. But once printing technology became available, we started to see the widespread distribution of music for the first time. The lyrics to folk songs would be printed on single pieces of broadside paper and sold at markets and fairs. These so-called broadsides generally only indicated a title and lyrics, but below the title they tell you a commonly known tune that you could sing the lyrics to. And broadsides became an absolute phenomenon. So much so that the Stationers' Company in London created a system of registration for these broadsides. And it's from this registration system that we find what I can very inconfidently say is probably the oldest song you know. On September 3rd, 1580, Richard Jones registered a song called A New Northern Ditty of Ye Lady Greensleeves. It's doubtful that Jones himself wrote the song, as a number of similar ballads were registered within the year. One was even recorded the same day by Edward White under the title Ye Lady Greensleeves, Answer to Duncan Her Friend. Today, there's a good chance you'll recognize the tune as simply Greensleeves. In its day, Greensleeves might have been something comparable to a chart-topping pop hit. In fact, it even made its way into the pop culture of the day, with a reference in Shakespeare's Merry Wives of Windsor. For me, Greensleeves was a staple of piano lessons as a kid, and my wife has told me that she most recognizes the melody as the Christmas carol, What Child Is This? Now, once again, there's no way of actually knowing if this melody is exactly what was being played or sung in the 1500s, but there's a lot clearer of a lineage here than older songs. So is this a definitive answer to the question I posed in the beginning? Not even close. But I hope that, at the very least, you enjoyed the exploration.
That was a great video. That was a great video, man.
Are there any songs that I missed? Do you know an older song that you want to share that you think has permeated pop culture today? If so, let me know in the comments. I would love more potential answers. If weird music history is your thing, have I got a documentary for you? And became a Soviet pop star. It's honestly the exact sort of musical ephemera that I live for. And of course,
Mr. Black Body says.
That means you'll be able to watch thousands of documentaries, and you'll be able to watch all of my videos early and ad-free. Follow the link in the description. So thank you all so much for watching.
Go check it out if you can. And shout out to Polyphonic for that video. Support black bees. Support black business. Support independent creators. Yeah. And that does it for that video. So shout out to Polyphonic for that. That was a really interesting history lesson. Greensleeves. Man, that was a really informative video, and I really like the production of that. So, of course, leaving a like. I'm going to subscribe. Hit the subscription. That's what it looks like now when you hit the subscription. Super cool. That's dope. That's dope. I'm going to send that to my favorites. So that's the favorite section. Guys, in that Caveman being on sticks was very influential for Noah's Ark. Yeah, alright, so let's get to my final thoughts and then wrap up this podcast episode. Alright. And once again, shout out to Polyphonic for that video. That was a really interesting video, an informative video on the history of music and the relationship between music and technology, and, you know, history back in 1,000 years ago, 1500s. You know, these ancient songs, these songs from, you know, antiquity, these songs from the past. It's really interesting learning about the past and how, you know, even religion plays a part in the history of music, and how that kind of transformed into the way we make music now. And learning that Greensleeves is probably the oldest song that we know. I didn't recognize the melody. I don't think I said in the reaction, but I didn't recognize the melody of Greensleeves. So, you know, but that is, I guess, the oldest song that I guess a lot of people would know. because it's been in music. It's even referenced in, like he said, the Shakespeare, or like the video said, the Shakespeare video. The Shakespeare video is crazy. Like the Shakespeare play. So that's crazy. He said it's akin to Green Sleeves would be akin to a chart-topping hit, which is a really interesting point that he brought up. So I really thought that was another interesting point in the relationship, like I said, between music and religion, and technology and music getting better over time, or the quality of music getting better over time due to the advancement of technology. And then learning about hymns from the past. I knew about hymns, and I also knew, generally speaking, about the history of like religion and music in terms of like gospel music and like, Christian music, and the how Christianity played a part in the role of music in the past, and how that kind of informed how music would, go forward. And how hymns in the past, are being referenced in films even from 100 years ago. Like he said, A Wonderful World, It's a Wonderful World, Home Alone. So that's some of the hymns. Those are some of the hymns that are referenced in like the newer movies, even the Lord of the Rings. Like I said in the reaction, I had a random point in my dream a couple of days ago, or was it a day ago or something like that. It was recent, where I was thinking about the Lord of the Rings. Not anything in the movie, but just like the name Lord of the Rings. It was super random, but regardless, besides that, I always thought that was informative, and I really appreciate that video Polyphonic. And I thought, why not react to a more historical video? I didn't recognize Green Sleeves, but that's one of the songs that I guess most people would recognize from the oldest. That's the oldest song that people will recognize, Green Sleeves. And for some reason, I forgot to mention the oldest song that I know, because that's the topic of the video. But I mean, I guess I don't really have like the oldest song I know. I mean, I've listened to songs from like the 1900s and that era, the 20th century, but I don't really know the oldest song I've heard or listened to besides hymns and besides the songs that were played in the video. So let me know, what is the oldest song you know, and what's your favorite oldest song? Like, I don't have my favorite oldest song. Maybe like a 1920 song, an old hymn from the past, or a gospel song or something like that. But I don't really know at the top of my head what is my favorite oldest song. But just, what is your favorite oldest song? Let me know in response to the podcast episode. So yeah. And so yeah, that basically does it for this podcast episode. Shout out to Polyphonic for that one. So support independent creators. Support independent creators. Also be sure to support black businesses, black creators, black independent creators. And yeah, so that was a great video. Shout out to Polyphonic, and that does it for this podcast episode. So if you enjoyed, be sure to let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next podcast episode, which will be a special episode, considering the time period I'm recording this in, the time period this is dropping. So that's episode 32. Peace out. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Have a nice day. Blessed night, blessed day whenever you're watching this. Goodbye. Sir, let's go. 8, 4. I know something about music. Peace out. Have a nice day. Goodbye.